In this video, we're going to continue on with the progress that Phil's Corn Law is making through the House of Representatives. And just to recap from the last video, the Speaker of the House got the bill, did a single referral, sent it to the chairman of the Agricultural Committee, also referred to as the full committee. The chairman sent it to the appropriate subcommittee. When it got to the subcommittee, they held hearings and they did a markup on the bill. And then we're going to assume that a majority supported it. And so it went from the full committee, the subcommittee, to the full committee. The full committee also had hearings, did the markup, and then a majority supported the bill that we're referring to as Phil's Corn Law 1. And so now it's going to the Rules Committee. Now, one thing I want you to know about the Rules Committee is that there is no comparable Rules Committee in the United States Senate. The Rules Committee, for all practical purposes, is just in the House. The other thing you need to know about the Rules Committee is that all the members from the majority party in the Rules Committee are appointed by the Speaker of the House. And so the way to understand the Rules Committee is as an extension of the Speaker's power. The Rules Committee basically does the bidding of the Speaker of the House. The Speaker of the House wants a bill to go a certain way, the Rules Committee will make sure it goes that way. If they don't want to go a certain way, it won't go that way. So that's the important thing. And then the leadership of the minority party picks members to be on the Rules Committee. But as you know now, there are always more members of the majority party than the minority party in every committee, and that's true in the Rules Committee. So what does the Rules Committee do? First, the Rules Committee determines how much time is going to be spent debating Phil's Corn Law. Or is the House going to debate it for an hour, or 2 hours, or 2 days? The Rules Committee will decide based on what the Speaker of the House wants. However much time they decide to spend debating on the bill, they divide it equally between proponents and opponents of the bill. So if there's going to be 2 hours of debate on Phil's Corn Law, the people who support Phil's Corn Law will get an hour, and the people who oppose Phil's Corn Law will get an hour. The other important thing that they do in the Rules Committee is they determine the rules for amending or changing Phil's Corn Law. What do I mean by that? When Phil's Corn Law comes to the floor of the House of Representatives, it may be that there are some people on the floor who want to change the bill in some way. They want to do amendments. An amendment can be either adding something to a bill, it can be changing something in a bill, or it can be eliminating something in a bill. All of those qualify as amendments. Well, the Rules Committee gets to decide what kind of rules there are going to be. Basically, they get to decide who is and isn't allowed to amend the bill. They can do one of three things. They can adopt a closed rule. If they adopt a closed rule, what that means is that there can be no amendments. When Phil's Corn Law comes to the floor, people can debate it, whether they like it or whether they don't, but they can't change it at all. They can't propose any amendments to it at all. They're either going to take it or leave it as it is. Alternatively, sometimes what they'll do is they'll do what are called modified rules. When the Rules Committee passes a modified rule, basically what they do is they allow some members of the House to propose amendments, but not everybody. So oftentimes what they'll do is they'll allow members of the full committee to propose amendments to the bill. So if you're on the Agricultural Committee, you may be able to propose a bill. If you're not on the Agricultural Committee, you can't. Now, what you could do, let's say you're on the transportation committee, but you have a great idea for this bill. You would have to go to somebody on the rules committee and say, hey, here's my idea. And if the House has adopted a modified rule where only members of the rules committee, the agriculture committee can propose amendments, then that person can propose amendments to the bill, but you can't if you're not on the agricultural committee. But here's what else they can do. They can let everybody in the House know, hey, we're going to be talking about Phil's corn law on Wednesday. If you have any ideas for amendments, submit them to the Rules Committee. Then the Rules Committee can take these proposed amendments and just decide, we're not going to vote on this one, we're not going to vote on this one. Okay, we'll let a vote on this one. We won't allow one here, we won't allow one here. They can just pick and choose which amendments they want to allow to be debated. That's a modified rule, where only some people can propose amendments, and the Rules Committee gets to determine who that is. Then alternatively, there are open rules. In an open rule, amendments are permitted from anybody. Anybody can propose an amendment. Right. And oftentimes what that does is it allows for the possibility that, in this case, Phil's corn law can change a lot because people are able to propose amendments. Now, there's something important you need to know about the House of Representatives. Any amendment that's proposed has to be germane to the bill. The word germane basically just means relevant. In other words, if somebody's going to propose an amendment to Phil's corn law, it has to be related to the substance of the bill. It has to have something to do with what the bill already plans on doing. Right? So for example, if somebody thinks it would be a good idea to raise the minimum wage, which has nothing to do with Phil's corn law, they can't propose an amendment to Phil's corn law to raise the minimum wage because that's not relevant, that's not germane. So now you may be thinking like, well, that makes sense. As you'll find out in the Senate, that's not true. In the Senate, you can propose amendments that are not germane, but I'll get to that in a moment. Once all the proposed rules have been discussed and debated, if a majority supports the rules, now Phil's corn law can go to the floor. Now, on the floor of the House of Representatives, the thing you need to know about the floor, debating on the floor of the House of Representatives, is that it's actually a 5-step process, but the only thing you need to worry about are 2 steps. And that is, the first thing that's going to happen is that the members of the House are going to debate the rules for debating and amending Phil's corn law. In other words, they're not going to start debating on the bill. The first thing that needs to happen in the House of Representatives is you need to have a set of rules that are going to guide you for how the bill is going to be debated and how it's going to be discussed, because every bill can have a different set of rules. One way to think about this is, in the House of Representatives, not having a set of rules is kind of like getting a box of IKEA furniture with no instructions. You look at it and go, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? In the House of Representatives, there have to be a set of rules before debated, discussed, and passed before the bill can be debated. So the first thing that would happen is they would debate the rules for debating and amending Phil's corn law. And if a majority support the rules, then the debate would begin on Phil's corn law. Now keep in mind, I'm calling this Phil's corn law 1. You'll see why later on. Once debate on Phil's corn law starts, again, they'll divide up the amount of time for equal to those who support the bill and those who oppose the bill. And the way it usually works is one person who supports will get up and talk, then one person who opposes will get up and talk, another person who supports it will get up and talk, and so on, and they go back and forth. We call it debating a bill, but it's not a debate. Everybody's just got their speeches that they've already planned. Nobody changes their mind. They already know how they're going to vote. After time is run out, now it's time to vote on the bill. If a majority supports Phil's corn law, it can now go to the United States Senate. And I'll pick that part up in the next video.